Hello everyone, it's Laura here and welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video I'm gonna show you how to create a night Halloween scene using Stamp and Dice by My Favorite Things. I entered this card in the My Favorite Things Card Design Superstar competition, and I didn't enter this competition so much because I thought I really had the chance at winning it, but because I wanted to take the chance at pushing myself to do something that I felt was above my skill level, so to push my boundaries a little bit. And I have to say this was way, far away from my comfort zone, but in the end I'm happy I tried and I'm happy with the result. I was inspired by videos by Kelly Latevola and by Sandy Olnock that I've seen recently on YouTube, in which you have these, night scenes with the stark highlights, these yellow highlights cast by the moon and very dark shadows, so I wanted to try and recreate that. I decided to use the Which Way is the Candy stamp set by My Favorite Things, and I stamped all my images on some Nina Solar White cardstock using my Memento Tuxedo Black ink. I went ahead and started coloring the witch with my Spectrum Noir markers, and as a first step I took a very light grey marker and I started to block the areas where I think the moon would hit the images. So everything that is left white right now will not be touched until the very end of the coloring, and this will be my yellow highlights on the image. I am using a very light grey marker because if I make a mistake, I can correct it more easily. And I am also coloring everything flat at this point because what I really want to be focusing on is to determine which areas will be my strongest highlights. So which are the parts that I have to leave white. And once I'm done with this stage, I can start building up depth and dimension by introducing progressively darker markers. And at this stage, I already know more or less what my scene will look like in the end, so I know where to place the highlights on each of the images because I know where this will stand with respect to the moon. And for this hat and the cape, I used the light grey marker because in the end, I wanted them to be black. And for the rest of the elements on the images, I will repeat the same process, but obviously I will use the lightest shade of the color I picked for that element. So the dress, for example, will be green, and I will use the lightest green that I had picked for my color combination to block in the highlights. And then I will come back in with the darker markers and start building contrast. And because this is a night scene, I want my shadows to be quite dark, so I want quite a bit of contrast between the highlights and the darkest shadows, and this will make the highlights pop even more. So obviously there was quite a bit of coloring in this project, and I wasn't quite sure whether to include it all in this video or not. Initially I was going to, but then the video was going to end up being very long. It was about 20 minutes, so I thought I would do the following, and please let me know what you think about it. So if you think this was a nice solution or if you'd prefer something different. So for this video right here, I will show you just the coloring for the witch, and then I'll move on and describe the way in which I made the background and in which I assembled the card and all that fun stuff. But I will also upload a second video which will most likely have no voiceover, but just music and coloring. And there you will see the coloring for all the images, and you will have all the markers listed in case, I forget to put the caps on the table so that the number of the marker is visible. So if you're interested in seeing all the coloring, you can watch that video, but at the same time, this video here is quite short. I mean, hopefully short enough not to be too boring. So please let me know what you think about this, if this is a nice solution or if you'd want something different again. And I will put some music right now, and I will catch you guys when I'm done coloring the witch. Once I was done coloring all my images, I fussy cut them using my scissors. And now I am running a black marker along the edges of my cut images to make the cut look seamless and perfect, as if I had the best cutting skills in the world. And then I can move on to my background. I have a piece of Bristol Smooth cardstock cut at the standard A2 size, so 4¼ by 5½. And I also created the mask for my moon. I traced the coffee mug on some masking paper and I cut the mask using my scissors. And this is because in this competition we are only allowed to use MFT products and I do not have an MFT circle die, so that's how I solved the problem. And as you can see on my sky, it's not perfect, but I will fix it in a little bit. I am also sorry that the blending part for the sky did not get recorded, but I used chipped sapphire, black soot and dusty concord. And obviously I masked the moon out and I did some ink blending with my blending tools. And now I'm using the negative of the moon mask to mask out the sky so that I can do some ink blending and add some color to the moon. And for that I am using scattered straw and squeezed lemonade. Because I felt the distress inks were a bit too bright, I used a microfiber cloth to sort of buff off a little bit of the extra ink. And as you can see, the edges of my moon are far from perfect, but I will fix it using my Prismacolor color pencils. I had actually tried to do it with my Distress Oxide in Iced Spruce. So keeping the moon mask on, I went along the edges with the Distress Oxide. But that didn't work very well, so I thought that the Prismacolors were a better alternative. So I am using the cream, and later on I will use the white color to go all around the moon and create a halo. And this has basically two effects. On the one hand, it adds to the spooky feel of the card, and on the other hand, because I also overlap the colors to the edges of the moon, it hides a little bit the fact that they are not perfect. And I think in the end, you don't really notice that the moon is not a perfect circle. It's time now to add the stars to my sky, so I am activating the silver color in my Gansai Tambi palette with some water. I'm picking up the paint with a small paintbrush and I'm flicking it all over my sky to create some tiny stars. You could also use some white acrylic paint or the white paint in the Gansai Tambi palette for this, but I like to use the silver one because it adds a subtle shine to the card and I think it's really nice. For my grassy border, I used the die by My Favorite Things to cut some more Bristol Smooth cardstock. This panel is as wide as my card base, so it's 5½ inches. And I'm adding color with my Distress inks. For the top of the grass blades, I'm using crushed olives. Now I am adding Maud Lawn, but I figured out it was way too bright for the kind of scene that, for a night scene basically. So I went over it with Forest Moss, and as a transition color between the Forest Moss and the crushed olive, I'm using Pewd paint. To darken up the grass even more, I am using Distress ink in black soot and a very light hand to deepen the shadows, especially in the areas where the grass is furthest away from the moon. I heat embossed my sentiment on some black cardstock using white embossing powder, and now I'm going ahead and assembling everything. I added some foam behind the bat's wings for some fun dimension, and now I'm adhering everything using some Tombow Mono multi-glue. And you can see now that you put all the images next to the moon, how dramatic this lighting is. I am really happy with the result, I have to say. I was not expecting to be able to pull this off. And even if I'm sure that there is plenty to be improved, again, I'm very happy with how this card turned out. So I first glued down the witch where I wanted it to be, and now I am adhering the rest of the elements in a way that I think looks pleasing. And because when I cut the cat, I had to cut off the whiskers, I am drawing them back in. So I first positioned the cat where I wanted it to be on my card. Then I drew the whiskers first with the pencil so that, I could correct any mistakes. And then I used the black pen, this is by Faber-Castell, to draw in the whiskers. And finally I add here the cat. And because all my cards have to have a bit of a frame, before adhering all the images to my card background, I had trimmed it down to 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, so that when I glue it down to my A2 card base, I have a border around my scene that is 1/16 of an inch wide. And that's it. That's my card for today. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video and you found it useful. If so, please let me know in the comments below. Leave this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. You can also visit my blog for the full list of supplies, and I hope I'll be back soon with another video. Ciao!